Malta. Who are we and what do we do? Basically, Servizzi Europei f'Malta was previously MUSEC, so now it has transitioned to SEM. We are split in two teams. There is the communications and outreach team, and also the EU funding, which provides assistance to applying for EU funds. As part of our mission, so we inform, we engage, and we support. And as part of our mission, we are now also tasked with promoting EU careers in Malta. And this is why this session has come to be, basically an EU career for you. We will explain briefly what an EU career is, the different positions, how to apply, and so on and so forth. So what is an EU career? Basically, when thinking of an EU career, one may think diplomacy or working with a politician, but what it actually means is working in the EU institutions and agencies, and therefore keeping the EU running on day-to-day basis. So apart from really influencing the change in the EU and its work, working for the EU also has a number of benefits, like a number of allowances, flexibility, good pay. So many people are really enticed to working in the EU and having an EU career. There are different EU institutions and agencies where one can work. There are 4 main decision-making institutions which lead the EU administration, and these institutions collectively provide the EU with policy direction and also play different roles in the EU decision-making process. In terms of EU institutions, as you know, there are the European Parliament, which is based in Brussels, Strasbourg, and Luxembourg, the European Council, which is based in Brussels, the Council of the European Union, which is based in Brussels and Luxembourg, the European Commission, which is the biggest and which employs the most people, which is based basically in Brussels and Luxembourg, but also there are the representations in each member state across the European Union. Apart from that, moving on, there is the European EU bodies, which work alongside the institutions and play specialized roles in helping the EU to fulfill its tasks. For example, there is the European External Action Service and the European Ombudsman, which are types of EU bodies. And then there are the EU agencies, and these are split into 2. There are the decentralized agencies and then the executive agencies. The decentralized agencies, there are currently over around 30. They have their own legal personalities, are set up for an indefinite period, and are distinct from the EU institutions. They work on different issues, for example, food, medicine, environment. And some examples are the European Maritime Services Agency, the EMSA, which is based in Portugal, and the one which we have locally, which is the European Union Asylum Agency. And then apart from those, the decentralized, there are also the executive ones. Basically, there are 6 of these which are set up for a limited time period, and they manage specific tasks associated with EU programs. They are legal entities and work on Commission initiatives ranging from health and education to innovation and research and many other areas. So basically, a new career can be, basically there are different profiles and fields of expertise which vary from assistants to IT experts, policy officers, economists, lawyers. So all types of careers can fit and be an EU career at the end of the day. So there are very various types of fields, how one can get into the work of an EU career. They are very, very varied, and as you can see, different profiles are very good. So in terms of the positions offered, There are different positions also. Usually the roles mentioned earlier are tied to specific contracts and positions in the different institutions. Just to give a brief overview and mention them all, there are the traineeships, contract agents, temporary agents, permanent officials, and seconded national experts, which are SNEs. Basically, we will go more into detail of the different positions in the next sessions. Today, we will just give an overview of a few of these, and then in the upcoming sessions, we will delve deeper into them. It's important to make a remark about EPSO, the European Person Selection Office. Basically, the work of EPSO is matching aspiring talent with EU careers. So it's the main pathway to get into an EU career. It's where the posts are published, and also where the platform through which you apply. The mission of EPSO is to meet the EU institutions' recruitment needs by selecting talented candidates through generous and specialist competitions. The EU institutions recruit staff from a pool of successful candidates provided by EPSO. And then it is a nice fact to note that EPSO processes an average of 46,000 applications a year for approximately 1,300 places in the EU institutions. So as you can see, there is a huge amount of applications for a small amount of postings. So as you can see, it is really competitive. To access the EPSO website, you just Google search EU careers or EPSO, and you will be redirected to this page. Now, just to understand the different positions that I previously mentioned, we will just have a brief overview of all the positions, basically just to start off with traineeships. This is the most easy, let's say, way to start off a new career. Basically, EU institutions and agencies offer traineeships targeting mainly university graduates that last between 3 and 5 months. So once you are graduated, you can apply for a traineeship within the EU institutions. They vary, wide range of fields, and offer great insight into the work of the EU. Most of the traineeships are based in Brussels or Luxembourg, and the selection procedures are run by the individual EU institutions and agencies, therefore not through EPSO, but directly from the institutions or agencies. The main two traineeships are the Schumann traineeship and the Blue Book traineeship. They are the biggest and most prestigious traineeships. The Schumann one is offered by the European Parliament, and the Blue Book is offered by the European Commission. They are both paid and last 5 months. There are 2 sessions, March to July and October to February, and the applications open quite well ahead. We will also, in the future, have specific sessions to discuss traineeships further, where we will give more information on how to apply and tips and tricks on these particular opportunities. It is also important to note that these are not strictly tied to Brussels or Luxembourg, because you can also choose to be placed in either the official representations of the member states, such as the European Parliament office in Malta, or as, for example, the European Commission representation in Malta. So it's not necessarily tied to Brussels or Luxembourg. Where to find these opportunities? Once again, you can access them through the EPSO website to get more information, and you can also Google Eurodesk. There are all the traineeships, not just Schumann and Blue Book, but you can also get more information about traineeships in other institutions, agencies, and bodies. In terms of contract agents, temporary staff, and permanent officials, the eligibility criteria is that you have to be a citizen of an EU member state, entitled to full rights as an EU citizen, fulfilled any obligations imposed on you by the laws concerning military service in your country, which in the case of Malta is not applicable, and thorough knowledge of one of the official EU languages. Therefore, it has to be a level C1 and also satisfactory knowledge of a second level B2 official EU language. So in the case of Malta, if you are very fluent in Maltese, you would list that as a level C1, and then English as a level B2 or better. In terms of temporary staff, these may be employed to perform a wide variety of tasks. This can be in highly specialized fields, in temporary tasks, or to make up for staff shortages. It is a more straightforward recruitment procedure than the previous, normally run by the respective EU institution, body, and agency. The contracts are awarded for a maximum of 6 years with the possibility for renewal. And you can also look into these opportunities on the EPSO website. In the next session, once again, this is a very brief overview of the position, but in the next session, we will go more into detail on the procedure and how to apply and how to look up these opportunities. In terms of contract agents, their role is to perform either temporary manual tasks, administrative support tasks, or to provide additional capacity in specialized fields, such as advisors. The EU institutions, bodies, or agencies may select a number of candidates from the contract agents selection tool, CAST. You'll come across this term quite frequently. We'll explain the CAST procedure in the next slide, but also in more detail in future sessions, or via a respective selection procedure, especially for the agencies. The initial contract period is of 6 to 12 months and is renewable, while the maximum period is of 6 years. And this position can eventually lead you to an indefinite contract in some agencies. In terms of the cost, permanent procedure, basically I'll just go through it quickly. So first, you have to complete and validate an application and update it every 6 months to confirm your interest. When the need arises from a database, a number of candidates whose profiles who are the best fit are shortlisted. These shortlisted candidates are then invited to a selection test by EPSO. These are computer-based multiple choice question tests organized in test centers. And then those who pass the CBT, the computer-based test, are placed on a list and then invited for interviews or any other type of recruitment test by the relevant institution, body, or agency. Candidates who are successful at the recruitment test may then receive an offer of employment. So as you can see, it's quite a long process, which takes quite a long time, takes around 9 months or maybe even longer. But it is the way to go to be employed in a new institution. In terms of permanent officials, there are 3 types of contracts that can be awarded. Administrators, assistants, or secretaries or clerks. We will again go into more details about the specific definitions of the contract types and even the levels in the next sessions. And basically, the EU institutions select candidates for permanent contracts through open competitions published on the EPSO website. Each competition is announced by a competition notice giving full details of the profile, the eligibility criteria, and also the selection procedure. As I stated previously, it takes 5 to 9 months to complete the selection procedure and then be placed on a reserve list from which you may then be selected from a job interview. So once again, the process is very long, very complex, but it is worthwhile. Just to give you a brief distinction between generalist competitions and specialist competitions, here it is noteworthy to make a point that at the moment APSO is currently focusing more on specialist competitions rather than generalist competitions. So the main difference is that specialist competitions can be for different types of contracts. They must have a certain level of professional experience, unlike generalists, which are much larger and more popular. The competition notice has also a specific requirements tailored to the position, and they are open periodically according to the EU institution needs. Once again, this is the procedure. Feel free to take note of it. We will go further into it in the next sessions. This is the APSO website. Once again, we already showed you the website before when we gave a brief overview of what is APSO. Just to look further into it, under the tab Job Opportunities, there is another tab, and you can click on it and you can filter it through the open positions that there currently are available. In terms of SMEs, seconded national experts, the requirements are at least 3 years of experience in an appropriate field. That person must have worked in the public service or public sector for at least 12 months and also have thorough knowledge of one of the EU languages and satisfactory knowledge of another EU language. The selection procedure is a bit different. Basically, you submit a CV and some other documentation, which is specified in the notice. And the contract is for a minimum of 6 months and up to a maximum of 4 years. And SMEs remain in the service of their employer throughout their secondment. So if you work in the government, you will still be working for the government. Other options, just to make you aware of the European Employment Services, EURES, their aim is to facilitate mobility across Europe and assist both job seekers and employers in order to reach these goals. So what EURES does is it helps any locally based EU national job seekers, as well as Maltese nationals who would like to work within the EU. So not necessarily within the EU institutions, but as a general job, wherever it is within the European Union. And EURES Malta can provide an online job search and job matching, information about living and working in a particular country. So also, if you are interested in joining and pursuing an EU career, you can also contact them before leaving the country to give you more information on living and working in that country. And it can also put you in touch with any of the 900 plus advisors across the EU. So we will now move on to the Q&A. The floor is open to any questions. My colleague Faith will moderate this. And Faith, I leave it up to you.
Yes, no problem. Even if there is something, for example, you are curious about the computer-based testing, even though we'll go into that more in detail in the next sessions, or if you would like a clear understanding of the permanent officials, the procedure, we can definitely do this in this time. Let us know if you have any queries, we'll go through them. Actually, Michaela, if you can, maybe we can go through the permanent officials, the procedure, since we have some time maybe, and then questions might pop up at that point. Would you like to handle or shall I? How would you like to proceed?
I can go through it,
Okay,
no worries.
perfect. Thank you.
So in terms of the specialist competition procedure, so this is published, as we have said, the competition of a specialist is published by EPSO. So obviously you have to first submit the application via the EPSO account. It is noteworthy, maybe to make a point on this, that one can only have one EPSO account. So one email and one login for every person. Then after they submit the application, part of the application will be a talent screener. Therefore, an online questionnaire will be used to select candidates based on the qualifications, and the questions will be based on the selection criteria and the notice of competition. And the best matches will then be invited to the next phase of the test. This is where they have to go and do the CBT, the computer-based testing, which is, as we've explained already, a multiple choice questionnaire, including verbal, numerical, and abstract reasoning. And for this, you have to prepare. There are various methods of preparing for it, including practice tests and books where you can study from, and that prepare you for these types of tests. This is basically another pre-selection test, and only those with the highest score will move on to the next phase. There are then the field-related tests, which is a series of multiple choice questions designed to test the inherent competence to the duties required for the specific profile. So if they are looking for someone, I don't know, a translator, for example, or a language expert, they will really test your language skills at this point. For example, through a comprehension, through practice. And then you will have to solve a case study and practical exercises at an assessment center in Brussels. There will also be a field-related interview, a motivation interview, and a group exercise. And then after this whole procedure, those with the highest scores will make it to the reserve list. This is unfortunately not a job yet, because the EU institutions will hire people when they have a job opening. So, and this is, the result is active for 1 year. So after going through the whole procedure, unfortunately, even if you do very well, unless there is a vacancy in the European institution, you will be on the reserve list for 1 year. I don't know if we have any questions, Faith.
Not yet, I'm not saying anything, but please feel free to ask. We understand that this might be a completely new topic to some people and can be complex, and we're here to answer anything, don't worry. So we have a question regarding hybrid or remote options. If yes, which type of careers usually have these options? So this would actually depend, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Charlene, would depend on the notice, but mostly it will be at the agency or the institution itself. However, they might have remote working options in place or hybrid options. However, you cannot strictly tie it to a certain position or a certain profile, because this is strictly tied to the agency. We encourage you that if, for example, you've come across something, let's say a temporary staff notice or a contract agent notice, you check the notice, the recruitment, and it might have some details on this particularly. Charlene, I don't know if you have something to add on this?
Yes, good morning, and thank you for inviting me. So basically, when it comes to remote working and also hybrid, there are rules and procedures in place, especially after the pandemic. but one needs to consider that when you are applying, you need to work from the place of posting. There are certain teleworking measures in place, but one cannot consider that, for instance, you will be working, for instance, 2 weeks in Malta and 2 weeks in Brussels. So there are certain teleworking conditions that are applicable in the EU institutions and agencies, but one needs to consider to be available to work from the place. For instance, if you are working to work in Brussels, that you will be available to come to Brussels and work from here. And then there are the teleworking rules that are applicable. When it comes to hybrid, you still need to work from the place where the institution is located. So if you apply to work in Brussels, you still need to work from Brussels.
Charlene, if you could maybe fix your microphone because we're not hearing you so well.
Are you hearing me like this?
A bit better, yes.
Okay. So basically, when it comes to hybrid, it still needs to be from the place where there is the institution. So for instance, if you apply to work in Brussels, you still need to be in Brussels, despite the fact that there are teleworking rules. But you cannot, for instance, assume that you will be able to work for a long time from Malta while still working for an institution. Also, I wanted to clarify a little bit when it comes to the seconded national experts. We receive several queries from Maltese who sometimes think that you just need to send a CV, and as a permanent representation, you just forward your CV. That is not exactly the procedure, and we are trying to work on a procedure in order to make it a little bit simple. Currently, the procedure can be found on the manual of resourcing at OPM, which can be found online, but I can easily put the link in the chat as well. It's in section 4.9. And basically, when it comes to public officers, and here we are referring to both officers who are working in public entities and also the public service, who need to consult their respective heads of units in order to get the approvals, and then they need to discuss with the respective permanent secretary of the given ministry. And that's how it works. And then it goes to the foreign ministry, the REU, and then we send it to the respective institution and agency. And I am saying this because we receive queries at the last minute. And obviously, since there is a process, usually it takes around 2 weeks in order to complete, in order to get the necessary approvals. And we had instances whereby applicants did not make it on time in order to get the necessary approvals. So the first port of call should always be the HR department of the respective ministry, because from our end, from the permanent representation and the ministry side, we send all vacancies that we receive from the institutions and the agencies, and these are sent to the respective ministries. So any public officer who needs to apply for an SME position or any position that will require government support, you need to consult your HR department first in order to give you the information. Then, if additional information is required, the HR department can easily consult with the HR department of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, and these queries can then be discussed either with SAM or even with the permanent representation. I wanted to flag this so that we don't experience any instances whereby there are applicants who need to apply and perhaps not make it on time. And also, in general, when it comes to applying for any position or even traineeships, do not leave it to the last minute. Despite the fact that everything is online, anything can happen. And when it comes to the EU institutions and agencies, they do not accept that any applicant would submit an application even 1 minute later. So please ensure that you have an account in place if you are going to apply via EPSO, or if you are going to apply via any other portal, obviously you need to consult the vacancy notice. Please ensure that you apply within the stipulated time, and ensure that you dedicate some time, especially when you are requested to provide a motivational letter. And when it comes to seconded national experts and other opportunities which you need to pass to government, we always encourage that you include a motivation letter, because sometimes when it comes to BCB, it may not be clear enough why you need the necessary support, and it would be easier in order to vet from the ministry side. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Charlene, for that. Even some clarifications. Thank you. Okay, so we have another question. So for generalist competition, to work as administrator or clerk, do the EU employers privilege any course of studies or professional background? So at the application stage, you will not be given any preference according to your studies or professional background, because at that stage, you only need your graduate, being a graduate. However, once you get to especially the reserve list, you will need to show certain competencies as well. So if you have experience and specific studies, not just European studies, for example, that would definitely be an asset for you that you can use. For generalist competitions as well, it's important that the procedure, you take note that it's, although EPSO might be changing it, it still will be similar to the one of the specialists that we explained earlier. That means you will still need to go through the CBT testing, which requires some commitment as well to prepare from your end. And also you will have to go to the assessment center, which again requires it. So if you have certain expertise and certain background, it will be an asset, but it will not give you privilege at the beginning, so to speak. It will help you at the end. I don't know if that answers your question, Mark. Also, if I may add, I know they sound very complex, the procedures, but we have people with us today who actually went through these procedures, and it's not something which is impossible for anyone. It is very possible if you are committed to it and you actually prepare. If we have any more questions, we can answer them now, or else we can move on to the speakers session. So, okay, SMEs. Charlene, I think you could maybe take this one. So for SMEs to know any of vacancies, one would need to speak to the HR department of the ministry, please.
Yes, so basically when it comes to...
If you could come closer to the mic, Charlene, because we're still not hearing you so well.
Okay, like this?
A bit better, yes.
Okay. So basically when it comes to SME vacancies, despite the fact that some of them are being uploaded on the EPSO website, when it comes to the EU institutions, they can only be passed from the permanent representation. When it comes to the agencies, they have a little bit of a different structure that sometimes they upload them on the website, but still they require the government support in order to go as an SME. So technically speaking, yes, you need to consult your HR department, so that if perhaps you have not been included in the list or the vacancy notices are not being circulated, you can flag this issue, and they can try to see why these calls are not being circulated or they are not reaching you, and you can discuss with them the way forward. Thanks.
Annalise Kallea, one of our speakers, added a very good comment. Preparation for competitions can take months or a year in total. And also, it may be the case that in your first application, in your first round, you are not successful immediately. But don't worry, take it as a learning curve. It is very common that people sit for 1, 2, 3 before actually getting to position. We know colleagues at the institutions who have themselves sat twice for the competition. So don't worry about it. It's something you will have to prepare and to take seriously, of course. So any more questions, please? Okay, I think we're good to go from the question side. Again, you can ask us anything later on when we open the floor again to you guys. So now we'll pass on to the speakers. Our first speaker is Mr. Malcolm Scicluna. He is the head of unit, Cooperation Support Unit at the European Labour Authority, ELA. Malcolm started his career in Maltese public service, where he occupied various positions in the Ministry for Social Policy, including as Director responsible for Social Security and International Relations. In 2018, he moved on to the European Commission, DG Employment, as a seconded national expert dealing with social security coordination, his area of expertise and specialization. Subsequently, he joined European Labour Authority in 2021, where in May he was appointed as head of unit of the Cooperation Support Unit, a unit aiming to improve cooperation between member states in the area of EU labour mobility, and aiming to improve, and which comprises of 50 staff members, including a network of 27 national liaison officers from all the EU member states. Just to remind you all, we'll be stopping the recording now. Great, so just 1 second before I stop the recording.